You feel out of control because you're reacting to everything, and reaction is the enemy of power. This video isn't about pretending to be calm. It's about becoming the one who sets the tone every time. Control starts where emotion ends. When you stop giving the world access to your triggers, you stop being a puppet and start being a commander. Learn how to build presence, patience, and invisible leverage, because the most feared man in the room is the one who doesn't flinch. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen to me carefully. Every emotion you feel is a door, and every door you leave unlocked is an invitation for others to walk through and take control of your life. The moment you react without thinking, you have handed the keys to your kingdom. To whoever provoked you, this is not philosophy. This is warfare. I have watched princes fall because they could not control their anger. I have seen merchants lose fortunes because they could not control their fear. I have witnessed scholars destroy their reputations because they could not control their pride. The pattern is always the same. Emotion leads, reason follows, and disaster arrives as the inevitable conclusion. But here's what most people don't understand about control. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of response. The weak man feels anger and strikes immediately. The controlled man feels anger and chooses his moment. The weak man feels fear and retreats. The controlled man feels fear and calculates his next move. The weak man feels joy and celebrates publicly. The controlled man feels joy and reveals nothing. Control begins with a simple recognition. Your emotions are information, not instructions. When someone insults you, the anger you feel is data. It tells you that your reputation is under attack. But anger is not a command to attack back. When someone threatens you, the fear you feel is intelligence. It tells you that danger is present. But fear is not an order to flee. When someone flatters you, the pleasure you feel is a warning. It tells you that manipulation may be at work. But pleasure is not permission to lower your guard. The first law of perfect control is this: kill the impulse between feeling and action. Create a space. In that space, you become powerful. In that space, you choose your response instead of being chosen by your emotions. In that space, you transform from a reactor into a commander. Watch how others move through the world. They are slaves to their impulses. Someone cuts them off in traffic. They honk and curse. Someone disagrees with them. They argue and escalate. Someone ignores them. They pursue and beg for attention. They are predictable. They are controllable. They are weak. Now watch how you move through the world. Are you any different? When your boss criticizes you, do you defend immediately? When your partner questions you, do you justify reflexively? When a stranger disrespects you, do you react instinctively? If the answer is yes, then you are not in control. You are being controlled. The path to perfect control begins with perfect awareness. You must catch yourself in the moment between trigger and response. You must feel the emotion rising and pause. You must recognize the pattern before it owns you. This is not easy. This requires training. This demands discipline. But let me ask you this: what is the alternative? To remain a puppet whose strings are pulled by every person who knows which buttons to push? To live at the mercy of your own emotions? To be forever reactive, forever defensive, forever small? No. You were born to command, not to be commanded. You were born to set the tone, not to match it. You were born to control, not to be controlled. But control is not a birthright. It is an achievement, and it begins the moment you decide that your emotions serve you, not the other way around. Every time you flinch, you send a message. Every time you compromise your standards, you announce your price. Every time you accept disrespect, you advertise your availability for more. You are not a victim of how others treat you. You are the architect of it. This is the truth that people refuse to accept. The world treats you exactly as you have taught it to treat you. Your boundaries are not walls that others must respect. They are lessons that others must learn. And you are the teacher, whether you realize it or not. I have observed this pattern in every court, every marketplace, every household. The merchant who accepts late payments will always be paid late. The prince who tolerates small rebellions will face large ones. The person who laughs at insults will be insulted again. The person who makes excuses for others' behavior will forever be making excuses. Your posture is your first lesson. Stand like a man who expects respect, and respect will come. Slouch like a man who accepts whatever he gets, and that is exactly what you will receive. Your shoulders should be back, your head should be high. Your eyes should meet every gaze without wavering. This is not arrogance, this is announcement. You are announcing that you know your worth. Your silence is your second lesson. Most people fill uncomfortable spaces with nervous chatter. They apologize for things they should not apologize for. They explain themselves to people who have no right to explanations. They negotiate with people who should be grateful for their attention. Every unnecessary word is a sign of weakness. Every justification is an admission of doubt. But here's what most people don't understand about teaching respect. It is not about being rude. It is about being clear. It is not about being harsh. It is about being consistent. It is not about being cruel. It is about being firm. The difference between respected people and disrespected people is not their talent or their intelligence or their luck. It is their standards and their willingness to enforce them. When someone is late to meet you, what do? Do you wait patiently and say nothing? Do you make excuses for them? Or do you act grateful that they showed up at all? If so, you have just taught them that your time has no value. You have given them permission to be late again. You have trained them to disrespect you. When someone interrupts you while you are speaking, what do? Do you stop talking and let them continue? Do you smile and wait for your turn? Do you pretend it doesn't bother you? If so, you have just taught them that your voice does not matter. You have shown them that they can take your space whenever they choose. You have demonstrated that you are not worth listening to. When someone breaks a promise to you, what do? Do you accept their excuses? Do you give them another chance immediately? Do you act understanding and forgiving? If so, you have just taught them that your trust is worthless. You have shown them that their word means nothing. You have proven that they can lie to you without consequence. The world is watching you constantly. Every interaction is an examination. Every conversation is a test. Every relationship is a negotiation. And you are either passing these tests or failing them. You are either setting your standard or accepting theirs. Restraint is not weakness. It is power held in reserve. When you do not react to provocation, you show that you cannot be controlled. When you do not chase after those who ignore you, you show that you have other options. When you do not defend yourself against every criticism, you show that you are secure in your worth. The people who command respect are not the loudest or the most aggressive. They are the most consistent. They say what they mean. They mean what they say. They do not negotiate their standards. They do not apologize for their boundaries. They do not explain their worth to those who cannot see it. You teach the world how to treat you with every response, every boundary, every standard you must set and maintain. What lessons are you teaching? No one is born with perfect composure. No one exits the womb with unshakable confidence. No one inherits the ability to remain calm under pressure. These are not natural gifts. They are trained responses. They are built through repetition, forged through discomfort, and earned through discipline. The people you admire for their composure, they were not always composed. The leaders you respect for their steady nerves, they were not always steady. The individuals you look up to for their grace under pressure, they were not always graceful. They became these things through practice. They developed these qualities through failure. They trained themselves to be unbreakable by being broken and choosing to rebuild stronger. Here is what the weak refuse to understand. Calmness is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows stronger through resistance. You do not develop composure by avoiding stress. You develop it by facing stress and choosing not to break. You do not build confidence by staying in your comfort zone. You build it by leaving your comfort zone and proving to yourself that you can survive what you feared. Every time you feel anxiety and breathe through it instead of running from it, you become stronger. Every time you feel anger and choose patience, instead of explosion, you become more controlled. Every time you feel fear and take action anyway, you become more courageous. This is not theory. This is training. But let me ask you this. What is your training routine for composure? You go to the gym to strengthen your body. You study to strengthen your mind. But what do you do to strengthen your ability to remain calm when everything around you is chaos? What do you do to build your capacity to think clearly when others are losing their minds? Most people have no training routine for composure. They hope that calmness will come naturally when they need it. They assume that confidence will appear automatically when they face a challenge. They expect that courage will emerge spontaneously when they encounter danger. This is not how strength works. This is not how any skill works. Response discipline is the foundation of all control. It is the ability to choose your response instead of being chosen by your impulses. It is the power to pause between stimulus and reaction. It is the skill of making decisions from logic instead of emotion. And it must be practiced constantly. Start small. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of cursing or honking, breathe and let it go. When someone disagrees with you in a meeting, instead of defending immediately, listen and consider. When someone cancels plans at the last minute, instead of getting upset, adapt and move forward. These are your training exercises. Build your tolerance for discomfort. Sit in silence for longer than feels natural. Stand in cold water until your body stops shivering. Hold uncomfortable positions until your muscles stop trembling. Fast until your hunger stops demanding attention. This is not punishment. This is preparation. You are teaching your body and mind that discomfort is temporary and survivable. Practice delayed gratification. When you want something, wait. When you feel the urge to check your phone, resist. When you crave immediate pleasure, choose delayed satisfaction. When you want to speak, choose silence. When you want to react, choose response. This is how you build the muscle of self-control. Here's what most people don't understand about composure. Under pressure, it is not about feeling no pressure. It is about functioning despite the pressure. It is not about having no fear. It is about acting despite the fear. It is not about feeling no anger. It is about thinking despite the anger. The trained man feels everything the untrained man feels. The difference is in the response. The trained man has practiced choosing his reaction. The untrained man is ruled by his impulses. The trained man has built the strength to pause. The untrained man is controlled by his emotions. Repetition is the mother of skill. You must practice composure when the stakes are low so that you can access it when the stakes are high. You must train your responses in calm moments so that they are available in chaotic moments. You must build your strength in safe spaces so that you can use it in dangerous spaces. The path to unshakable composure is not mysterious. It is methodical. It is not about talent. It is about training. It is not about luck. It is about discipline. Every day you choose. Will you strengthen your ability to remain calm, or will you remain at the mercy of your emotions? Calm is not natural. It is trained, and the training begins now. Most people speak to be heard. The powerful watch to understand. While everyone else is competing for attention, the observer is collecting intelligence. While everyone else is performing, the watcher is learning. While everyone else is reacting, the student is strategizing. Information is the currency of control, and the richest people in this currency are not those who talk the most. They are those who listen the most. They are those who see the most. They are those who understand the most. They are the quiet ones in the corner, who notice everything and reveal nothing. I have learned more from watching than from speaking. I have gained more power from listening than from arguing. I have discovered more secrets from silence than from conversation. The person who observes controls the game because they understand the rules while others are still learning them. Watch how people reveal themselves when they think no one is paying attention. Watch how they behave when they believe they are safe. Watch how they treat those who cannot help them. Watch how they respond to pressure. Watch how they handle success and failure. This is where their true character lives, not in their words, but in their unguarded moments. The weak man enters a room and immediately starts talking. He tells everyone who he is, what he does, what he wants, what he fears, what he loves, what he hates. He gives away his entire hand in the first 5 minutes. He provides everyone with a complete map of his strengths and weaknesses. He makes himself predictable. He makes himself controllable. The observant man enters a room and listens. He watches. He studies. He learns who has real power and who only appears to have power. He identifies the relationships that matter and the alliances that don't. He spots the tensions, the insecurities, the ambitions, the fears. He leaves knowing more about everyone than they know about him. But here's what most people don't understand about observation. It is not passive, it is active. It is not just waiting, it is hunting. You are not just sitting quietly. You are gathering intelligence. You are not just listening to words. You are reading between the lines. You are not just watching actions. You are understanding motivations. Pay attention to what people don't say. The topics they avoid reveal their insecurities. The questions they deflect reveal their secrets. The people they don't mention reveal their conflicts. The emotions they hide reveal their vulnerabilities. Silence is often more informative than speech. Pay attention to how people treat different audiences. How does the boss speak to superiors versus subordinates? How does the salesman treat potential customers versus existing clients? How does the politician address wealthy donors versus regular voters? The difference reveals their true priorities and their real character. Pay attention to timing. When do people make their requests? When do they share their opinions? When do they reveal their needs? When do they show their hand? Timing reveals strategy. Timing reveals desperation. Timing reveals power. Pay attention to body language. People can control their words, but they struggle to control their bodies. Watch their posture when they feel confident versus when they feel threatened. Watch their eyes when they tell the truth versus when they lie. Watch their hands when they are relaxed versus when they are nervous. The body always tells the truth. Pay attention to patterns. How does this person typically respond to criticism? How do they usually handle conflict? How do they normally make decisions? Patterns reveal predictability. Predictability creates opportunity. Opportunity enables control. The observer sees opportunities that others miss because they are too busy talking to notice them. The observer spots dangers that others overlook because they are too distracted by their own performance. The observer understands people's motivations while others are still guessing about their actions. But let me ask you this. When you enter a room, are you performing or observing? When you join a conversation, are you talking or listening? When you meet new people, are you trying to impress them or trying to understand them? Your answer reveals whether you are building power or giving it away. Knowledge is power only when it is hidden. The moment you reveal what you know, you lose your advantage. The moment you show your hand, others can play against it. The moment you expose your intelligence, people guard themselves against it. The most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest or the most charismatic. It is the one who understands everyone else better than they understand themselves. It is the one who has been watching while others have been performing. It is the one who knows the game while others are still learning the rules. Observation is not a skill you use occasionally. It is a way of life. It is how you gather the intelligence that enables you to make better decisions, build stronger strategies, and maintain perfect control. The one who observes controls. What are you choosing to see? You don't need to be numb to be powerful. You don't need to stop feeling to start controlling. You don't need to become heartless to become effective. Detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of perspective. It is the ability to step outside of your immediate feelings and see the situation as it truly is. The weak man is trapped inside his emotions. When he is angry, anger becomes his entire world. When he is afraid, fear becomes his only reality. When he is hurt, pain becomes his complete identity. He cannot see beyond what he feels. He cannot think past what he experiences. He becomes his emotions instead of using them. The detached man feels everything the weak man feels, but he does not become what he feels. When he is angry, he notices the anger and asks what it reveals. When he is afraid, he acknowledges the fear and examines what it protects. When he is hurt, he accepts the pain and considers what it teaches. He experiences his emotions without being controlled by them. This is the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. Reaction comes from being inside the emotion. Response comes from stepping outside it. Reaction is about the feeling. Response is about the situation that created the feeling. But here's what most people don't understand about detachment. It makes you more effective, not less human. It makes you clearer, not colder. It makes you stronger, not harder. When you are not overwhelmed by emotion, you can see solutions that emotion obscures. When you are not consumed by feelings, you can make decisions that feelings complicate. Imagine you are in a heated argument with someone you care about. If you remain attached to your anger, you will say things you cannot take back. You will escalate when you should de-escalate. You will focus on winning instead of solving. You will damage the relationship to protect your ego. But if you can, detach from your anger, notice it, understand it, but not be ruled by it. You can see what the argument is really about. You can address the underlying issue instead of fighting about the surface problem. Imagine you receive harsh criticism about your work. If you remain attached to your hurt feelings, you will become defensive. You will reject feedback that could help you improve. You will focus on protecting your self-image instead of advancing your skills. You will choose comfort over growth. But if you can detach from your hurt, feel it, acknowledge it, but not be controlled by it, you can evaluate the criticism objectively. You can separate useful feedback from personal attacks. You can improve without being destroyed. Imagine you face a major setback in your career or business. If you remain attached to your disappointment, you will waste time mourning what was instead of building what could be. You will focus on the past instead of the future. You will become paralyzed by loss instead of motivated by possibility. But if you can detach from your disappointment, experience it, process it, but not be defined by it, you can analyze what went wrong without being crushed by it. You can learn from failure without being defeated by it. Detachment is not about suppressing your emotions. Suppression creates explosion. Suppression builds pressure. Suppression leads to loss of control. Detachment is about experiencing your emotions without being imprisoned by them. It is about feeling without drowning. It is about caring without being consumed. The path to detachment begins with perspective. When you feel overwhelmed by an emotion, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years, in 1 year, in 1 month, in 1 week? This is not about minimizing your feelings. This is about sizing them appropriately. This is about understanding their proper place in the larger context of your life. The path to detachment continues with purpose. When you feel controlled by an emotion, ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to protect? What is it trying to achieve? What is it trying to tell me? This is not about ignoring the message. This is about receiving it without being ruled by it. This is about learning from the emotion without being enslaved by it. The path to detachment concludes with choice. When you understand the emotion and its message, ask yourself, what response serves my goals? What action moves me forward? What decision makes me stronger? This is not about being emotionless. This is about being strategic. This is about using intelligence to guide emotion. instead of allowing emotion to override intelligence. But let me ask you this. When you feel strong emotions, do you dive deeper into them, or do you step back from them? Do you let them consume your thinking, or do you use them to inform your thinking? Do you become your feelings, or do you learn from your feelings? Detachment sharpens your decision-making like a blade. When you are not clouded by overwhelming emotion, you can see opportunities that others miss. When you are not paralyzed by fear, you can take risks that others avoid. When you are not blinded by anger, you can find solutions that others overlook. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It is not numbness. It is wisdom. It is not disconnection. It is perspective, and it is the foundation of perfect control. The things that provoke you are the things that control you. Every trigger is a lever that others can pull to make you dance to their rhythm. Every emotional button is a remote control that someone else can use to direct your behavior. Every pattern of reaction is a chain that binds you to predictability. Your triggers are not random. They are not accidents. They are not mysterious forces beyond your understanding. They are specific, identifiable, addressable weaknesses in your armor. They are gaps in your defense that you can close. They are patterns that you can change. But first, you must see them clearly. What makes you lose your composure instantly? What words, what actions, what situations cause you to abandon your strategy and react impulsively? What pushes you from thinking to feeling? What transforms you from commander to commanded? These are your triggers. These are your vulnerabilities. These are the places where others can seize control of your behavior. I have watched men who could conquer armies fall apart when their pride was questioned. I have seen women who could negotiate the most complex deals become speechless when their appearance was criticized. I have observed leaders who could handle massive crises lose their minds when their authority was challenged. Their triggers became their downfall. But here's what most people don't understand about triggers. They are not permanent features of your personality. They are not unchangeable aspects of your character. They are learned responses that can be unlearned. They are habits that can be broken. They are patterns that can be reprogrammed. You are not doomed to react the same way forever. The first step is recognition. You must catch yourself in the moment of being triggered. You must notice the physical sensations, the tension in your jaw, the heat in your chest, the acceleration of your pulse. You must identify the emotional experience, the surge of anger, the wave of shame, the flood of fear. You must observe the mental response, the automatic thoughts, the defensive narratives, the justifying stories. The second step is pause. Between the trigger and your reaction, you must create space. In that space, you have power. In that space, you have choice. In that space, you can decide whether to follow your old pattern or create a new one. The pause is where freedom lives. The pause is where control is born. The third step is choice. In the pause, you ask yourself, what response serves my strategy? What reaction moves me toward my goals? What behavior demonstrates the person I am becoming rather than the person I used to be? You choose based on logic, not emotion. You choose based on your long-term interests, not your immediate impulses. But this is not a one-time process. This is daily practice. This is moment-by-moment discipline. Every time you feel triggered, you have an opportunity to strengthen your control or weaken it. Every time you pause instead of react, you become more powerful. Every time you choose strategy over impulse, you become less controllable. Starve your triggers by refusing to feed them. When someone tries to provoke you, do not take the bait. When someone pushes your buttons, do not press back. When someone attempts to make you react, choose not to respond. Every time you refuse to be triggered, you weaken the trigger's power over you. Every time you choose a different response, you create a new pattern. Feed your strategy by focusing on your goals. When you feel the urge to react emotionally, remind yourself of what you are trying to achieve. When you feel pulled toward old patterns, redirect your energy toward new possibilities. When you feel controlled by your triggers, remember that You are building something greater than your immediate feelings. The person who can trigger you controls you in that moment. The person who can make you angry controls your energy. The person who can make you defensive controls your attention. The person who can make you react controls your behavior. This is not acceptable. This is not sustainable. This is not powerful. But let me ask you this. Who currently has the ability to trigger you? What situations consistently cause you to lose your composure? What patterns of reaction are you repeating that no longer serve you? These are not comfortable questions. They are necessary questions. The path to perfect control requires that you become untriggerable. Not because you stop feeling, but because you stop reacting. Not because you become numb, but because you become strategic. Not because you don't care, but because you care about the right things in the right proportions. Your triggers are not your enemies. They are your teachers. They show you where you need to grow stronger. They reveal where you need to build better defenses. They highlight where you need to develop greater control. But they can only teach you if you are willing to learn from them instead of being ruled by them. Every master of control was once controlled by their triggers. Every person with perfect composure once lost their composure regularly. Every individual with unshakable calm once shook with every provocation. The difference is not that they stopped having triggers. The difference is that they stopped feeding them. Starve the trigger. Feed the strategy. Choose power over pattern. This is how control is built. This is how freedom is earned. This is how mastery is achieved. When people know how you'll react, they own the game. When they can predict your responses, they can manipulate your behavior. When they understand your patterns, they can use those patterns against you. Predictability is not reliability. It is vulnerability. And vulnerability is leverage for those who know how to use it. The predictable man is a controlled man. He does not realize it, but his consistency has become his weakness. His reliability has become his prison. His patterns have become his chains. Others have learned his rhythm, and now they can dance him wherever they want him to go. I have seen this. Pattern destroy careers, relationships, and kingdoms. The king who always responds to threats with aggression. His enemies provoke him into wars he cannot win. The merchant who always negotiates with desperation. His suppliers raise prices because they know he will pay. The leader who always seeks approval. His subordinates manipulate him by withholding validation. Their predictability became their downfall. Their patterns became their weakness. Their consistency became their cage. But here's what most people don't understand about behavioral unpredictability. It is not about being random. It is not about being inconsistent. It is not about being chaotic. It is about being strategically variable. It is about keeping others off balance while you remain perfectly balanced. It is about being unpredictable to them while being completely clear to yourself. The weak man thinks unpredictability means having no plan. The strategic man knows unpredictability means having multiple plans and choosing which one to execute based on the situation. The weak man thinks unpredictability means being erratic. The strategic man knows unpredictability means being adaptable. The weak man thinks unpredictability means losing control. The strategic man knows unpredictability means maintaining control by refusing to be controlled. Study your own patterns. How do you typically respond to criticism? How do you usually handle conflict? How do you normally react to pressure? How do you regularly behave when you want something? These patterns are maps that others can learn to read. These patterns are weaknesses that others can learn to exploit. If you always defend when attacked, you will be attacked whenever someone wants you on the defensive. If you always pursue when ignored, you will be ignored whenever someone wants your attention. If you always compromise when pressured, you will be pressured whenever someone wants concessions. Your patterns become tools in other people's hands. Break your patterns before others break you with them. When someone expects you to argue, listen instead. When someone expects you to chase, withdraw instead. When someone expects you to explain, remain silent instead. When someone expects you to react emotionally, respond logically instead. Confuse their expectations. Disrupt their strategy. Reclaim your power. But this is not about being contrary for the sake of being contrary. This is not about doing the opposite of what you normally do just to be different. This is about having options. This is about maintaining flexibility. This is about refusing to be boxed into predictable responses that others can exploit. The unpredictable person keeps everyone guessing. Will they fight or will they negotiate? Will they engage or will they ignore? Will they reveal their hand or will they hold their cards? This uncertainty creates respect. This mystery creates power. This variability creates control. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you surprised someone with your response? When was the last time you did something that others didn't expect? When was the last time you broke your own pattern and chose a completely different approach? If you cannot remember, then you have become too predictable. You have given others too much power over you. Behavioral unpredictability requires emotional predictability. You must be steady inside so that you can be flexible outside. You must be consistent in your principles so that you can be variable in your tactics. You must be reliable to yourself so that you can be unpredictable to others. This is the paradox of perfect control. You become more unpredictable by becoming more self-controlled. When you are not driven by emotion, you can choose from a full range of responses. When you are not limited by patterns, you can adapt to any situation. When you are not controlled by others' expectations, you can create your own reality. The predictable person is playing checkers. Every move follows obvious rules. The unpredictable person is playing chess. Every move opens new possibilities while closing others. The predictable person gives away their next move. The unpredictable person keeps all options open. People feel comfortable with predictable individuals because they can manipulate them. People feel uneasy around unpredictable individuals because they cannot control them. Comfort for others often means control over you. Unease for others often means freedom for you. The goal is not to make people uncomfortable. The goal is to make yourself uncontrollable. The goal is not to be confusing. The goal is to be free. The goal is not to be erratic. The goal is to be strategic. Master the art of strategic unpredictability. Vary your responses. Change your patterns. Keep your options open. Refuse to be boxed into predictable behaviors that others can exploit. Because the moment they think they know exactly how you'll react, they start treating you like a puppet. Instead of a person, predictability is leverage for the enemy. Don't give them that advantage. Stay mysterious. Stay flexible. Stay free. The loudest people are rarely in power. The most talkative are seldom the most influential. The ones who reveal everything control nothing. While everyone else is broadcasting their thoughts, sharing their plans, and exposing their weaknesses, the truly powerful are listening, learning, and keeping their own counsel. Information flows toward power, not away from it. The person who knows the most and reveals the least holds all the cards. The person who understands everyone else's position while concealing their own position controls the game. The person who sees all hands while showing none wins every round. I have observed this truth in every court, every negotiation, every relationship. The merchant who reveals his desperation gets the worst deals. The politician who exposes her strategy gets outmaneuvered by her opponents. The leader who shares all his thoughts loses the respect of his followers. The person who tells everyone everything becomes predictable, manipulable, and weak. Your thoughts are not public property. Your plans are not community resources. Your strategies are not group assets. Your intentions are not social obligations. What happens in your mind belongs to you alone until you choose to give it away. And every time you give it away carelessly, you lose power. But here's what most people don't understand about strategic silence. It is not about being secretive for the sake of being secretive. It is not about being mysterious for the sake of being mysterious. It is about controlling access to the most valuable resource you possess, information about yourself. It is about choosing what to reveal, when to reveal it, to whom to reveal it, and why to reveal it. The weak person treats every conversation like a confession. They tell strangers about their problems. They share their fears with acquaintances. They reveal their strategies to competitors. They discuss their weaknesses with anyone who will listen. They think that sharing creates connection. They think that revealing creates trust. They think that openness creates power. They are wrong. Sharing creates vulnerability. Revealing creates targets. Openness creates opportunity for others to exploit you. The controlled person treats every conversation like a negotiation. They share only what serves their purpose. They reveal only what advances their position. They expose only what strengthens their hand. They understand that information is currency, and they do not spend it carelessly. They do not give away what they can sell. They do not reveal what they can leverage. Control your narrative by controlling your revelations. When someone asks about your problems, you do not owe them a detailed explanation. When someone inquires about your plans, you do not owe them a complete blueprint. When someone questions your methods, you do not owe them a thorough justification. When someone probes your weaknesses, you do not owe them an honest inventory. You owe them exactly what serves your interests and nothing more. This is not about lying. This is about choosing. This is not about deception. This is about selection. This is not about being false. This is about being strategic. You can be completely honest without being completely open. You can be entirely truthful without being entirely transparent. When someone asks where you work, you can say, the company. Name without explaining your salary, your problems, your ambitions, or your exit strategy. When someone asks about your relationship, you can acknowledge its existence without detailing its challenges, its history, or its future. When someone asks about your goals, you can share the general direction without revealing the specific steps, the timeline, or the backup plans. The person who reveals less controls more because mystery creates respect. When people do not know everything about you, they cannot take you for granted. When they cannot predict your every move, they must treat you with caution. When they cannot see all your cards, they must respect your position. But let me ask you this. When someone asks you a personal question, do you feel obligated to answer completely? When someone shows interest in your life, do you feel compelled to share everything? When someone seems friendly, do you assume they deserve access to your private thoughts? If the answer is yes, then you are giving away power unnecessarily. The less you reveal, the more valuable your revelations become. When you speak rarely, people listen carefully. When you share selectively, people appreciate what you share. When you reveal strategically, people respect what you reveal. Scarcity creates value. Abundance creates waste. Silence is not emptiness. It is fullness held in reserve. Silence is not weakness. It is strength that does not need to prove itself. Silence is not ignorance. It is knowledge that does not need to show off. Silence is not absence. It is presence that commands attention without demanding it. The most powerful people in any room are not the ones who talk the most. They are the ones who understand the most. They listen while others perform. They observe while others display. They calculate while others react. And when they finally speak, everyone listens because their words are rare, considered, and valuable. The less you reveal, the more you control. Guard your thoughts like treasures. Protect your plans like secrets. Shield your strategies like weapons. Because in a world where everyone is talking, the person who chooses silence chooses power. Your face is either a leak or a weapon. Every expression broadcasts information. Every micro-reaction reveals your hand. Every uncontrolled emotion displayed on your features gives others ammunition to use against you. Your face is the window to your thoughts, and windows can be closed or opened at will. The weak man wears his emotions like billboards. His face announces his anger before he speaks. His eyes reveal his fear before he acts. His expression exposes his desperation before he negotiates. His features betray his intentions before he moves. He is an open book that anyone can read, and everyone who reads him gains power over him. The controlled man commands his features like a general commands his troops. His face reveals only what he chooses to reveal. His eyes show only what serves his purpose. His expression communicates only what advances his position. His features are tools, not leaks. They work for him, not against him. I have watched men lose fortunes because their faces revealed their desperation during negotiations. I have seen women forfeit opportunities because their expressions showed their doubt during interviews. I have observed leaders lose followers because their features displayed their fear during crises. Their faces became their downfall. Your eyes are the most dangerous betrayers. They reveal interest when you should appear indifferent. They show fear when you should project confidence. They expose lies when you should maintain credibility. They communicate attraction when you should remain neutral. They telegraph your next move when you should keep your strategy hidden. Train your eyes to be still. Do not let them dart around when you are nervous. Do not let them widen when you are surprised. Do not let them narrow when you are angry. Do not let them soften when you are moved. Do not let them avoid contact when you are uncomfortable. Your eyes should be steady, direct, and controlled, regardless of what you feel inside. Your mouth is the second most dangerous betrayer. It reveals amusement when you should be serious. It shows disapproval when you should be neutral. It exposes uncertainty when you should project certainty. It communicates weakness when you should demonstrate strength. It betrays your reactions before you can control them. Train your mouth to remain neutral. Do not let it twitch when you are amused. Do not let it frown when you are disappointed. Do not let it smile when you should be stern. Do not let it open when you are shocked. Do not let it tighten when you are angry. Your mouth should be composed, controlled, and deliberate, regardless of what you want to express. But here's what most people don't understand about facial control. It is not about becoming emotionless. It is not about being robotic. It is not about losing your humanity. It is about choosing when and how to display your emotions rather than having them displayed automatically. It is about being strategic with your expressions rather than reactive with them. The goal is not to never show emotion. The goal is to show emotion when it serves your purpose, not when it serves others' purposes. The goal is to reveal feeling when it advances your position, not when it weakens your position. The goal is to express yourself when it helps your cause, not when it hurts your cause. Practice in the mirror. Watch your face as you think about things that anger you. Notice how your features change. Observe how your expression shifts. See how your emotions leak through your mask. Then practice maintaining neutral features while experiencing strong emotions. This is not easy. This requires discipline. This demands training. Practice with others. Pay attention to what your face reveals during conversations. Notice when your eye expressions give away information that you wanted to keep private. Observe when your features betray reactions that you wanted to control. Then practice maintaining composure while feeling triggered, surprised, attracted, or threatened. But let me ask you this. When you are in important situations, do you think about what your face is revealing? When you are negotiating, interviewing, or confronting someone, are you aware of what your expressions are communicating? When you want to appear confident, calm, or composed, do you check whether your features support that image? The person who can read faces controls conversations. They see doubt when others try to project confidence. They spot lies when others attempt to appear truthful. They detect interest when others pretend to be indifferent. They recognize fear when others try to seem brave. But the person who cannot be read maintains all the power. Your face should be a controlled instrument, not an automatic display. It should serve your strategy, not betray your emotions. It should support your goals, not sabotage your efforts. It should be a tool of communication that you wield deliberately, not a leak of information that flows freely. Stillness is strength. Composure is confidence. Control is power. When your face betrays nothing, you reveal nothing. When you reveal nothing, you control everything. When you control everything, you command respect. Train your face like you train your body. Practice your expressions like you practice your skills. Master your features like you master your thoughts. Because in a world where everyone is broadcasting their emotions, the person who controls their display controls the interaction. Your face is either a leak or a weapon. Make it a weapon. Train it to betray nothing. Command it to serve your purpose. Master it to maintain your power. Impatience exposes the weak. Patience unmasks the desperate. Time reveals who has real power and who only appears to have it. The person who must have an answer now is not in control. The person who can wait for the right answer commands the situation. Time is the ultimate pressure tool, but most people use it against themselves. They rush when they should wait. They demand immediate responses when delay would serve them better. They show their urgency when concealing it would give them advantage. They treat time as their enemy when it should be their weapon. I have watched negotiations where one party destroyed their position by revealing their deadline. I have seen business deals collapse because someone showed their desperation for quick closure. I have observed relationships fail because one person pressured for immediate commitment when patience would have created genuine desire. Their impatience became their weakness. The desperate person cannot hide their urgency. They call multiple times when one call would suffice. They follow up immediately when waiting would be stronger. They make concessions quickly when holding firm would be wiser. They accept bad deals rather than risk no deals. Their need for speed reveals their lack of options. The patient person controls the pace. They do not rush when others want urgency. They do not pressure when others expect demand. They do not chase when others anticipate pursuit. They wait when others would act. They think when others would react. They let time work for them while others fight against it. But here's what most people don't understand about strategic patience. It is not about being slow. It is not about being indecisive. It is not about avoiding action. It is about timing your actions for maximum effect. It is about moving when the moment is right, not when pressure demands it. It is about acting from a position of strength, not weakness. Use time as a filter. The people who pressure you for immediate decisions are usually trying to prevent you from thinking clearly. The opportunities that require instant commitment are usually not the best opportunities. The choices that cannot wait for consideration are usually not the right choices. Good things rarely require bad timing. Use time as a test. The person who becomes angry when you ask for time to think is showing you their true character. The deal that falls apart when you request time to consider is revealing its weakness. The relationship that cannot survive your need for reflection is demonstrating its fragility. Time separates what is real from what is manufactured urgency. Use time as a weapon. When someone demands an immediate response, you gain power by refusing to be rushed. When someone creates artificial deadlines, you gain control by questioning their necessity. When someone pressures you to decide quickly, you gain advantage by slowing down the process. Your refusal to be hurried becomes your strength. The powerful person rarely shows urgency, even when they feel it. They do not let others see their deadlines. They do not reveal their time constraints. They do not expose their schedule pressures. They understand that the moment others know you are in a hurry, they gain leverage over you. When you must have something quickly, never let that urgency show. When you are facing a deadline, never let that pressure be obvious. When you are running out of time, never let that desperation be visible. Act as if you have all the time in the world, even when you have very little. This is not deception, this is strategy. But let me ask you this. When someone asks you to make a quick decision, do you feel compelled to comply? When someone creates urgency around an opportunity, do you feel pressured to act immediately? When someone gives you a deadline, do you automatically accept it as real and necessary? If so, you're giving others control over your timing, and your timing controls your life. Learn to say, I need time to think about this. Learn to say, I don't. Make important decisions under pressure. Learn to say, let me consider this and get back to you. These phrases protect your right to think clearly. These responses preserve your power to choose wisely. These words maintain your control over your own timeline. Patience is not passive waiting. Patience is active preparation. While others are rushing into poor decisions, you are gathering information. While others are reacting to pressure, you are planning your response. While others are being controlled by time, you are using time to strengthen your position. The person who can afford to wait usually gets the better deal. The person who can delay gratification usually achieves greater success. The person who can resist immediate pressure usually makes superior choices. This is not luck. This is discipline. This is strategy. This is power. Time reveals character. It shows who has real confidence and who is bluffing. It exposes who has genuine options and who is desperate. It uncovers who has actual power and who only appears powerful. The longer you can wait, the more powerful you appear. The more powerful you appear, the better your outcomes become. Master the art of strategic timing. Move when the moment serves you, not when others demand it. Act when your position is strongest, not when pressure is greatest. Decide when you have clarity, not when you have urgency. Time is the ultimate pressure tool. Use it on others. Don't let them use it on you. The calmest person dominates the energy. While everyone else is reacting to the atmosphere, the composed individual is creating it. While others are matching the mood, the controlled person is setting it. While the crowd follows the emotional current, the leader directs where that current flows. Energy is contagious, but it flows from the strongest source to the weakest receivers. The person with the most emotional control becomes the emotional center of any group. The individual with the steadiest composure becomes the anchor point that others orient around. The one who remains unmoved becomes the force that moves everyone else. I have watched single individuals change the entire dynamic of rooms simply by refusing to match the prevailing energy. I have seen calm people transform chaotic meetings into productive discussions. I have observed composed leaders turn panicked teams into focused units. Their emotional stability became the foundation that others built upon. But here's what most people don't understand about emotional leadership. You do not control others by trying to control others. You control the room by controlling yourself so completely that others naturally align with your energy. You do not force people to match your mood. You maintain your mood so consistently that they choose to match it. The weak person enters a tense room and becomes tense. They encounter angry people and become angry. They face anxious individuals and become anxious. They absorb whatever energy surrounds them. They become emotional sponges that soak up every feeling in their environment. They are controlled by the mood instead of controlling it. The strong person enters a tense room and remains calm. They encounter angry people and stay composed. They face anxious individuals and maintain steadiness. They do not absorb the energy around them. They radiate their own energy outward. They become emotional radiators that warm or cool their environment. As needed, when you walk into chaos and remain peaceful, others begin to calm down. When you encounter aggression and stay composed, others start to moderate their intensity. When you face panic and maintain your steadiness, others begin to find their stability. Your emotional state becomes their reference point. Your composure becomes their goal. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel anything. This is about choosing which emotions you will express and when you will express them. This is about being strategic with your energy rather than reactive with it. This is about leading with your emotional intelligence rather than following with your emotional impulses. Study the emotional atmosphere of every room you enter. Is it tense or relaxed, excited or subdued, focused or scattered, confident or anxious? Most people unconsciously adopt whatever energy they find. You must consciously choose what energy you will project. If the room is chaotic, bring calm. If the room is aggressive, bring composure. If the room is anxious, bring confidence. If the room is scattered, bring focus. Do not add to the dysfunction. Do not amplify the negative energy. Do not feed the emotional fire. Instead, become the water that cools the temperature. But let me ask you this. When you enter a room full of stressed people, do you become stressed? When you join a conversation full of angry individuals, do you become angry? When you encounter anxious energy, do you become anxious? If so, you are being led by the mood instead of leading it. Practice emotional independence. Your internal state should be determined by your choices, not by your environment. Your composure should come from your discipline, not from your circumstances. Your energy should flow from your purpose, not from other people's patterns. The person who leads the mood controls the conversation. If you remain calm during heated discussions, others will lower their voices to match yours. If you stay focused during scattered meetings, others will organize their thoughts to align with your clarity. If you maintain confidence during uncertain times, others will look to you for direction. This is how you build influence without seeking it. This is how you gain respect without demanding it. This is how you acquire leadership without pursuing it. When you become the emotional center of gravity, others naturally orbit around your energy. But emotional leadership requires consistency. You cannot be calm one day and chaotic the next. You cannot be composed in easy situations and reactive in difficult ones. You cannot lead the mood when it is convenient and follow it when it is not. Your emotional state must be reliable, predictable, and strong. The room always has a mood. Someone is always setting the emotional tone. Someone is always leading the energy. The question is not whether there will be emotional leadership. The question is whether that leadership will come from you or from someone else. Will you set the standard or will you accept someone else's standard? Choose to be the emotional center. Refuse to be pulled into dysfunction. Maintain your composure regardless of what surrounds you. Project the energy you want to see rather than absorbing the energy you encounter. Lead the mood and you will control the room, because in a world full of people who react to every emotional wave, the person who creates their own emotional weather becomes the one everyone else looks to for direction. The calmest person doesn't just survive the storm, they become the eye around which everything else revolves. Control is not in the facts. Control is in the framing. The person who sets the lens through which others view the situation controls the situation, regardless of what the facts actually say. The person who defines the terms of the discussion controls the discussion, regardless of who speaks more eloquently. The person who establishes the context controls the outcome, regardless of who has the better logic. Arguments are battles over facts. Framing is warfare over perspective. Arguments determine who is right. Framing determines what rightness means. Arguments are about winning points. Framing is about setting the game, and the person who sets the game always wins, even when they lose individual points. I have watched brilliant men lose debates, not because their facts were wrong, but because they accepted someone else's framing of the issue. I have seen intelligent women fail to persuade not because their logic was flawed, but because they argued within someone else's definition of the problem. I have observed skilled negotiators walk away empty-handed, not because their position was weak, but because they operated within someone else's framework. The weak person tries to win arguments by presenting better facts, stronger logic, more compelling evidence. They believe that truth will triumph if they just explain it clearly enough. They think that reason will prevail if they just argue persuasively enough. They assume that the best case will win if they just make it forcefully enough. They are wrong. Facts are not enough. Logic is not sufficient. Evidence is not decisive. What matters is not what the facts are. What matters is how the facts are interpreted. What counts is not what the logic proves. What counts is what framework the logic operates within. What determines victory is not the strength of the evidence. What determines victory is the lens through which the evidence is viewed. The controlled person understands that framing precedes facts. Before you present your evidence, you must establish the context in which that evidence will be evaluated. Before you make your logical argument, you must define what logic is relevant to the situation. Before you share your facts, you must determine what those facts will be measured against. When someone says your product is too expensive, the weak response is to argue about price. The controlled response is to reframe the conversation around value. When someone says your idea won't work, the weak response is to defend the idea. The controlled response is to reframe the discussion around what working means. When someone says you're being unreasonable, the weak response is to explain your reasoning. The controlled response is to reframe what constitutes reasonableness. Here's what most people don't understand about framing. It happens before the argument begins. It is established in the first moments of the conversation. It is set by whoever speaks first, asks the first question, or defines the initial terms. Once the frame is set, everything that follows operates within that frame, unless someone has the skill and power to reframe. Control the questions being asked. The person who asks the questions controls the direction of the conversation. Instead of answering their questions, ask better questions. Instead of defending your position within their framework, establish a new framework with your inquiries. Instead of accepting their definition of the problem, redefine what problem you are solving. Control the assumptions being made. Every argument rests on underlying assumptions about what is important, what is relevant, what is possible, what is desirable. Most people accept these assumptions without question. The framer questions these assumptions and replaces them with assumptions that favor their position. Control the comparisons being drawn. When someone compares your proposal to their preferred alternative, they have set a frame that favors their preference. When someone measures your performance against their chosen standard, they have established a context that serves their agenda. Change the comparison, shift the standard, reframe the measurement. But let me ask you this. When someone criticizes your approach, do you defend your methods or do you question their criteria? When someone challenges your decision, do you justify your choice or do you examine their assumptions? When someone attacks your position, do you strengthen your argument or do you reframe the battlefield? The master of control does not win arguments. They make arguments irrelevant. They do not prove they are right. They redefine what rightness means. They do not defeat opposition. They redirect opposition toward different targets. They operate at a level above the argument, controlling the context in which the argument takes place. This is not manipulation. This is leadership. This is not deception. This is perspective. This is not trickery. This is strategy. The person who controls the frame is not fooling people into seeing things differently. They are helping people see things more clearly by providing a better lens through which to view the situation. When you control the frame, you do not need to win every point, because you have already won the game. When you set the context, you do not need to defeat every argument, because the arguments are happening on your territory. When you establish the perspective, you do not need to prove you are right, because you have defined what rightness looks like. Facts tell stories, but frames determine which stories get told and how those stories get interpreted. Logic reaches conclusions, but frames determine which logic is relevant and what conclusions matter. Evidence supports positions, but frames determine which positions are worth supporting and what evidence counts. Don't win arguments. Control the frame. Set the context. Define the terms. Establish the perspective. Ask the questions. Choose the comparisons. Control the lens through which others view the situation, and you control the situation itself. Because in a world where everyone is fighting over facts, the person who controls the framework controls the meaning of those facts. And meaning is everything. Powerful people don't say more. They say less, with force. Every word carries weight because they have eliminated the words that carry no weight. Every sentence matters because they have removed the sentences that don't matter. Every statement creates impact because they have discarded the statements that dilute impact. The weak person uses 10 words when one would suffice. They explain what needs no explanation. They elaborate what should remain simple. They add qualifiers, hedges, justifications, and apologies to everything they say. They speak to fill silence instead of speaking to create meaning. They mistake quantity for quality, volume for value, length for strength. The controlled person speaks like a surgeon operates, with precision, purpose, and no wasted motion. Every word is chosen. Every phrase is calculated. Every sentence is crafted to achieve a specific effect. They understand that in communication, less is more. They know that power comes from concentration, not distribution. I have watched verbose people lose negotiations by talking themselves out of good positions. I have seen chatty individuals destroy their credibility by sharing too much information. I have observed talkative leaders diminish their authority by over-explaining their decisions. Their words became their weakness because they had too many of them. But here's what most people don't understand about powerful communication. It is not about being silent all the time. It is about being selective with your words. It is not about saying nothing. It is about making everything you say count. It is not about being mysterious. It is about being meaningful when you speak. People should listen not because you are loud, but because you are worth hearing. When you express an opinion, people should consider it not because you express it frequently, but because you express it thoughtfully. When you make a statement, people should remember it not because you repeat it endlessly, but because you craft it perfectly. Eliminate weak words from your vocabulary. Remove phrases like, I think maybe, sort of, kind of, I guess, probably, and I suppose. These words dilute your message. They undermine your confidence. They make you sound uncertain even when you are certain. They make you appear weak even when you are strong. Eliminate unnecessary explanations from your communication. When you make a decision, you do not owe everyone a detailed justification for why you made it. When you set a boundary, you do not need to explain all the reasons behind it. When you state a position, you do not have to defend it preemptively against every possible objection. Eliminate filler words from your speech. Stop saying, like, and actually between your thoughts. These sounds make you appear unprepared. They make you sound uncertain. They fill valuable space with worthless noise. Silence between thoughts is more powerful than meaningless sounds. But let me ask you this. When you speak, do you get to the point quickly, or do you circle around it slowly? When you make a request, do you state it clearly, or do you hedge it with qualifications? When you express an opinion, do you declare it confidently, or do you soften it with uncertainty? The power of your words is inversely related to their quantity. The more you say, the less weight each word carries. The more you explain, the less authority you project. The more you qualify, the less confidence you demonstrate. The more you speak, the less people listen. Choose precision over volume. Say what you mean without decoration. Mean what you say without qualification. Express your thoughts without apology. State your positions without justification. Make your requests without pleading. Give your answers without over-explanation. When someone asks for your opinion, give it clearly and stop talking. When someone requests information, provide it concisely and remain silent. When someone needs a decision, make it definitively and move forward. When someone wants an answer, deliver it precisely and wait for their response. The most memorable communicators are not those who speak the most words. They are those who choose the right words. They are not those who talk the longest. They are those who make the greatest impact. They are not those who fill the most time. They are those who create the most meaning. Practice saying more with less. Before you speak, ask yourself, what is the essential message I need to communicate? What is the minimum number of words required to communicate it effectively? What words can I eliminate without losing meaning? What phrases can I simplify without sacrificing clarity? Powerful communication is like powerful music. The silence between the notes is as important as the notes themselves. The pauses between your words give those words time to land. The space between your sentences gives your listener time to process. The quiet after your statement gives your message time to resonate. When you choose precision over volume, people listen more carefully to what you say. When you eliminate unnecessary words, your necessary words gain power. When you stop diluting your message with filler, your core message becomes concentrated and potent. Speak like your words cost money and you have a limited budget. Speak like your time is precious and you cannot waste it on meaningless chatter. Speak like your audience is intelligent and does not need everything explained to them multiple times. Choose precision over volume. Make every word count. Let silence do some of the work. Create impact through concentration, not distribution. Because in a world full of noise, the person who speaks with precision cuts through the chaos and commands attention. Powerful people don't say more. They say less, with devastating accuracy. Sometimes control means stepping back. Sometimes power requires distance. Sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. While everyone else is fighting for attention, competing for space, and demanding to be heard, the truly powerful understand that absence can be more influential than presence. The weak person believes they must always be available, always be responding, always be engaging. They think that stepping back means giving up. They assume that distance means defeat. They confuse withdrawal with weakness. They mistake absence for abandonment. They fear that if they are not constantly present, they will lose their influence. They are wrong. Constant presence creates familiarity. Familiarity breeds contempt. Contempt destroys power. The person who is always available becomes taken for granted. The person who always responds immediately appears to have nothing better to do. The person who never steps back never gains perspective. The controlled person understands that scarcity creates value. When you are always present, your presence becomes worthless. When you always respond immediately, your responses lose impact. When you never say no, your yes means nothing. When you never create distance, you cannot create desire. Strategic absence is not running away. It is stepping back to gain leverage. It is not avoiding the game. It is changing the rules of the game. It is not weakness. It is strength held in reserve. It is not defeat. It is repositioning for victory. Have watched leaders increase their influence by becoming less available. I have seen negotiators improve their positions by walking away from tables. I have observed individuals gain respect by creating distance from those who took them for granted. Their absence became their presence. Their withdrawal became their advance. But here's what most people don't understand about strategic absence. It must be purposeful, not emotional. It must be calculated, not reactive. It must serve your long-term interests, not your immediate feelings. It must be a choice made from strength, not a reaction born from weakness. Use absence to create mystery. When people cannot predict your availability, they value your attention more highly. When they cannot count on your immediate response, they craft their requests more carefully. When they cannot take your presence for granted, they appreciate it more deeply. Use absence to avoid bad situations. Not every meeting deserves your attendance. Not every conversation deserves your participation. Not every conflict deserves your energy. Not every drama deserves your attention. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply not be there. Use absence to let others reveal themselves. When you step back, you create space for others to step forward. When you remain quiet, you allow others to fill the silence, often with information they should have kept to themselves. When you withdraw your energy, you force others to show their true priorities. Use absence to break negative patterns. If every interaction with someone follows the same destructive script, change the script by changing your participation. If every meeting turns into the same unproductive argument, Stop attending until the format changes. If every conversation becomes the same circular debate, end your involvement until the dynamic shifts. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you chose not to respond to something that demanded your response? When was the last time you stepped back from a situation that expected your involvement? When was the last time you created distance from people who took your presence for granted? The person who is always available has no leverage. The person who always responds immediately appears desperate. The person who never says no appears weak. The person who never creates boundaries appears powerless. Constant accessibility is not generosity. It is self-destruction. Learn to be selectively unavailable. Learn to delay your responses strategically. Learn to decline requests that do not serve your goals. Learn to create distance from situations that drain your energy without providing value. Learn to step back before you are pushed back. Absence makes the heart grow fonder and the mind grow curious. When you remove your presence, people begin to wonder about your activities. When you delay your responses, people begin to question your priorities. When you step back from situations, people begin to appreciate your contributions. This is not about being cruel or manipulative. This is about valuing yourself enough to make your time and attention scarce resources. This is about understanding that your presence is a gift, not an obligation. This is about recognizing that your energy is limited and should be invested wisely. The person who masters strategic absence gains the power to shape situations without being present in them. They influence outcomes without being involved in every detail. They control dynamics without being consumed by them. Their absence becomes a form of presence, one that is felt more strongly because it is chosen rather than constant. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Sometimes the strongest move is no move. Sometimes the best response is no response. Sometimes control requires stepping back, creating distance, and letting your absence do the work that your presence cannot accomplish. Absence is a tactic, not a weakness. Use it wisely, use it strategically, use it powerfully. This is the mental muscle that separates the controlled from the controlled. This is the difference between those who command their circumstances and those who are commanded by them. This is the foundation upon which all other forms of power rest. A mind that responds to stress with calculation, not emotion. Most people have minds like paper. They crumple under pressure. They fold when challenged. They tear when stressed. They burn when heated. Their thoughts become chaotic when their environment becomes chaotic. Their reasoning becomes unclear when their situation becomes unclear. Their decision-making becomes poor when their pressure becomes intense. The controlled person has built a mind like steel. It bends under extreme pressure, but does not break. It maintains its essential structure even when the forces acting upon it are enormous. It continues to function even when the conditions are hostile. It produces clear thoughts even when the circumstances are confusing. Building a mind that doesn't flinch requires training that most people are unwilling to undertake. It requires practicing composure when composure is difficult. It requires maintaining logic when emotion is overwhelming. It requires thinking clearly when thinking clearly seems impossible. It requires making good decisions when making any decision feels paralyzing. The flinching mind seeks comfort. It avoids difficult thoughts. It runs from uncomfortable truths. It chooses pleasant illusions over harsh realities. It makes decisions based on what feels good rather than what is true. It selects actions based on what is easy rather than what is effective. It operates from hope rather than calculation. The unflinching mind seeks accuracy. It pursues difficult thoughts because they lead to better understanding. It faces uncomfortable truths because they enable better decisions. It chooses harsh realities over pleasant illusions because reality is where power lives. It makes decisions based on what is true rather than what feels good. It selects actions based on what is effective rather than what is easy. But here's what most people don't understand about building mental toughness. It is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming emotionally intelligent. It is not about feeling nothing. It is about feeling everything while being controlled by nothing. It is not about suppressing your humanity. It is about expressing your humanity through strength rather than weakness. Train your mind to separate facts from feelings. When you face a crisis, ask yourself, what do I know for certain? What am I assuming? What am I feeling? What are the facts telling me? What are my emotions telling me? Which source of information should guide my decisions? The unflinching mind uses emotion as information, but facts as foundation. Train your mind to focus on solutions instead of problems. When you encounter obstacles, ask yourself, what can I control in this situation? What actions are available to me? What resources can I access? What opportunities does this challenge create? The flinching mind focuses on what's wrong. The unflinching mind focuses on what's possible. Train your mind to think in probabilities instead of certainties. When you face uncertain situations, ask yourself, what are the most likely outcomes? What are the potential consequences of each option? What is the best case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? What is the most probable scenario? The unflinching mind prepares for multiple possibilities instead of hoping for single outcomes. But let me ask you this. When you face high-pressure situations, does your thinking become clearer or more confused? When you encounter serious problems, do you focus on solutions or get overwhelmed by the complexity? When you must make important decisions under stress, do you rely on logic or emotion? Your answers reveal whether your mind flinches or stands firm. Mental toughness is built through progressive exposure to difficulty. You do not develop an unflinching mind by avoiding stress. You develop it by facing stress and maintaining your composure. You do not build mental strength by staying comfortable. You build it by becoming comfortable with discomfort. You do not create psychological resilience by avoiding challenges. You create it by meeting challenges and remaining functional. Practice making decisions when you don't want to make them. Practice thinking clearly when you don't feel like thinking. Practice maintaining logic when emotion is pulling you toward irrationality. Practice staying calm when everything around you is chaotic. These are not natural abilities. These are trained responses. The unflinching mind sees opportunities where others see only threats. It finds solutions where others see only problems. It maintains hope where others feel only despair. It takes action where others become paralyzed. It thinks strategically where others react emotionally. It builds while others break. This mental strength becomes your greatest asset in every area of life. In negotiations, you remain calm while others become desperate. In conflicts, you think clearly while others react emotionally. In crises, you function effectively while others become paralyzed. In high-pressure situations, you make good decisions while others make poor ones. The person with an unflinching mind cannot be broken by circumstances because their mind is stronger than their circumstances. They cannot be controlled by others because they cannot be controlled by their own emotions. They cannot be defeated by challenges because they are strengthened by difficulty. They cannot be diminished by pressure because they are refined by it. Build a mind that doesn't flinch. Train it through difficulty. Strengthen it through stress. Refine it through pressure. Test it through challenges. Because in a world full of people whose minds crumble under pressure, the person whose mind remains strong becomes the one everyone else looks to for stability, direction, and leadership. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. Your thoughts either serve you or enslave you. Your mental patterns either strengthen you or weaken you. Build a mind that doesn't flinch, and you build a foundation for unshakable power. Control doesn't mean avoiding war. It means managing it. The person who fears all conflict becomes powerless. The person who seeks unnecessary conflict becomes reckless. But the person who can engage in conflict without being consumed by it becomes formidable. They fight when fighting serves them. They avoid battle when avoidance serves them. They remain strategically flexible, while others become emotionally rigid. Conflict is inevitable. Someone will always want what you have. Someone will always disagree with your methods. Someone will always challenge your position. Someone will always test your boundaries. The question is not whether you will face conflict. The question is how you will handle it when it arrives. The weak person either avoids all conflict or engages in all conflict. The avoider gives up their power to maintain peace. The fighter wastes their power in unnecessary battles. Both approaches lead to weakness. The avoider appears weak because they never defend their interests. The fighter appears weak because they exhaust themselves fighting battles that don't matter. The controlled person uses conflict like a tool, applying it when it serves their purpose and setting it aside when it doesn't. They understand that some battles must be fought and some battles must be avoided. They know that timing matters more than intensity. They recognize that the goal is not to win every fight. The goal is to win the right fights at the right times, in the right ways. I have observed leaders destroy themselves by fighting every challenge to their authority. I have watched negotiators fail by avoiding every difficult conversation. I have seen individuals lose everything by either being too aggressive or too passive. Their inability to calibrate their response to conflict became their downfall. But here's what most people don't understand about strategic conflict management. It requires emotional immunity. You must be able to engage in battle without being consumed by battle. You must be able to fight without losing yourself in the fight. You must be able to face aggression without becoming aggressive. You must be able to handle hostility without becoming hostile. When someone attacks your position, you have three options: defend, counterattack, or ignore. The weak person chooses automatically based on emotion. The controlled person chooses strategically based on calculation. Sometimes defense is strongest. Sometimes offense is most effective. Sometimes indifference is most powerful. Choose your battles based on importance, not emotion. Fight for things that matter to your long-term goals, not things that matter to your immediate ego. Engage when you can win something valuable. Avoid when victory would cost more than it's worth. The goal is not to prove you can fight. The goal is to advance your position. Choose your timing based on advantage, not provocation. Fight when the conditions favor you, not when someone challenges you. Engage when you are prepared, not when you are angry. Attack when you are strong, not when you are emotional. The person who controls the timing of conflict usually controls the outcome of conflict. Choose your methods based on effectiveness, not preference. Sometimes direct confrontation works best. Sometimes indirect pressure is more powerful. Sometimes public challenge is necessary. Sometimes private conversation is sufficient. The tool should match the task, not your temperament. But let me ask you this. When someone challenges you, do you automatically fight back, or do you consider whether fighting serves your interests? When conflict arises, do you let emotion drive your response, or do you let strategy guide your actions? When you must choose between avoiding a battle and engaging in one, do you choose based on fear or based on calculation? Emotional immunity means feeling the full impact of conflict without being controlled by those feelings. When someone attacks, you feel the anger, but you don't act from anger. When someone threatens you, you feel the fear, but you don't retreat from fear. When someone insults you, you feel the hurt, but you don't respond from hurt. You use the information that emotions provide. They tell you that something important is at stake, but you do not let emotions make your strategic decisions. You let calculation determine your response. You let logic guide your actions. You let strategy direct your moves. The person who can remain emotionally immune during conflict has enormous advantages. They can think clearly while their opponents think emotionally. They can plan strategically while their enemies react impulsively. They can choose their responses while others are controlled by their reactions. They can stay focused on their goals while others get distracted by their feelings. This does not mean being cold or heartless. This means being strategic and effective. This means using your emotional intelligence to understand what is happening without letting your emotions control what you do about it. This means feeling everything while being controlled by nothing. Practice engaging in small conflicts while maintaining your composure. Practice having difficult conversations while staying calm. Practice defending your position while remaining logical. Practice standing your ground while keeping your temper. These skills transfer to larger, more important conflicts. The goal is not to become someone who loves conflict. The goal is to become someone who can handle conflict when it is necessary. The goal is not to seek out battles. The goal is to win the battles that seek you out. The goal is not to enjoy fighting. The goal is to remain effective while fighting. Use conflict without being consumed by it. Fight when fighting serves you. Avoid when avoidance serves you. Remain strategic when others become emotional. Stay focused on your goals when others get lost in their feelings. Because the person who can manage conflict without being managed by it gains a decisive advantage in a world where most people either run from every fight or fight every battle poorly. Waiting for approval is how power is lost. Every moment you spend seeking permission is a moment you could spend taking action. Every decision you delay for validation is a decision that becomes less valuable with time. Every move you postpone for consensus is a move that your competitors make while you hesitate. The need for validation is the enemy of decisive action. It transforms leaders into followers. It converts visionaries into committees. It changes pioneers into passengers. It reduces the powerful to the powerless. It turns those who should be setting the pace into those who are trying to match it. I have watched brilliant individuals fail, not because their ideas were bad, but because they waited too long for others to approve of those ideas. I have seen capable leaders fall not because their strategies were wrong, but because they sought consensus before implementing them. I have observed talented people lose opportunities not because they lacked ability, but because they needed encouragement before using it. Their need for validation became their limitation. Their desire for approval became their weakness. Their requirement for permission became their prison. The validation seeker asks, "What will people think?" The self-directed person asks, "What needs to be done?" The validation seeker worries, "What if I'm wrong?" The self-directed person calculates, "What if I'm right?" The validation seeker hesitates, "Should I really do this?" The self-directed person acts, "How can I do this effectively?" But here's what most people don't understand about operating without validation. It is not about ignoring all input. It is not about being reckless with decisions. It is not about avoiding all counsel. It is about making your own decisions based on your own analysis, rather than waiting for others to give you permission to think, choose, and act. You can gather information without seeking approval. You can consult advisors without requiring consensus. You can listen to opinions without needing endorsement. You can consider perspectives without demanding validation. The goal is to make informed decisions, not popular decisions. The goal is to be right, not to be liked for being right. The person who needs validation before acting rarely acts at all. They spend their time in meetings instead of making moves. They invest their energy in persuasion instead of performance. They focus on getting buy-in instead of getting results. They become paralyzed by the need for approval instead of powered by the clarity of purpose. The person who acts without validation gains several advantages. They move while others debate. They progress while others deliberate. They advance while others ask for permission. They create momentum while others create committees. They produce results while others produce reports. This does not mean being impulsive or reckless. This means being decisive and accountable. This means gathering the information you need, making the best decision you can with that information, and taking responsibility for the consequences of that decision. This means operating from logic and principle rather than from consensus and comfort. But let me ask you this. How many good ideas have you failed to pursue because you couldn't get enough people to support them? How many opportunities have you missed because you spent too long seeking approval? How many decisions have you delayed because you wanted validation? How many actions have you avoided because you needed encouragement? The world does not owe you validation. Success does not require approval. Progress does not need permission. Excellence does not demand endorsement. Results do not require consensus. You can achieve without applause. You can succeed without support. You can excel without encouragement. Learn to validate yourself. Judge your ideas by their merit, not by their popularity. Evaluate your decisions by their logic, not by their acceptance. Measure your actions by their effectiveness, not by their approval rating. Trust your analysis more than others' opinions. Value your judgment more than others' validation. The most significant achievements in history were accomplished by people who moved without validation. They acted despite criticism. They persevered despite doubt. They continued despite disapproval. They succeeded despite skepticism. They proved their worth through their work, not through others' words. This requires confidence in your own judgment. This demands trust in your own abilities. This necessitates faith in your own vision. This calls for belief in your own value. If you do not believe in yourself enough to act without others' approval, why should others believe in you enough to give you that approval? The validation you seek from others must first be found within yourself. The approval you want from the world must first be earned from your own conscience. The permission you need from everyone else must first be granted by your own judgment. The encouragement you require from others must first be generated by your own conviction. Start with small decisions that don't require others' input. Practice making choices and taking actions based on your own analysis. Build your confidence in your own judgment through experience. Develop your ability to act independently through practice. Strengthen your self-reliance through repetition. Then apply this independence to larger decisions, more significant actions, more important choices. Move from requiring validation to providing leadership. Shift from seeking approval to earning respect. Transform from needing permission to granting opportunity to yourself and others. You don't need validation to move. You need clarity about where you want to go and the courage to start walking in that direction. The validation will come after you've proven yourself through your actions, not before you've convinced others through your words. Act from logic, not from applause. Move from principle, not from permission. Decide from analysis, not from approval. Because while you're waiting for the world to validate your worth, your competitors are proving theirs. In the end, control is not about domination. It is about presence. It is not about forcing others to obey. It is about commanding respect. So complete that obedience becomes unnecessary. It is not about making noise to prove your power. It is about possessing such undeniable strength that your silence speaks louder than others' shouts. Perfect control is felt, not seen. It is sensed, not announced. It is recognized, not declared. The person who has achieved it does not need to prove it, display it, or defend it. Their control is so complete, so natural, so integrated into their being that it radiates from them like heat from fire or light from the sun. I have stood in the presence of such individuals. Their power was unmistakable, yet understated. Their authority was absolute, yet invisible. Their control was perfect, yet effortless. They did not command attention. Attention flowed to them naturally. They did not demand respect. Respect was offered voluntarily. They did not insist on obedience. Cooperation emerged organically. This is the ultimate achievement. To become the kind of person who no one dares to provoke, not because they fear your reaction, but because they respect your position. To become the individual whose boundaries are never tested not because of the consequences of crossing them, but because of the obvious inappropriateness of challenging them. to become the presence that others naturally orient themselves around without being asked, forced, or manipulated. The person with perfect control never loses their temper because they have integrated their emotions so completely that anger becomes a choice rather than a reaction. They never feel out of control because they have built such strong internal systems that external chaos cannot destabilize them. They never appear weak because they have eliminated the gaps in their armor through which weakness might show. But here's what most people don't understand about perfect control. It is not a destination, it is a practice. It is not something you achieve once and possess forever. It is something you cultivate daily, maintain constantly, and refine continuously. It is not a state of being. It is a way of being. It is not what you are. It is what you do, moment by moment, choice by choice, response by response. Perfect control manifests as unshakable composure. No situation can fluster you. No person can rattle you. No pressure can break you. No provocation can control you. You remain steady in chaos, calm in crisis, clear in confusion, and confident in uncertainty. Your internal weather is always fair, regardless of the external storm. Perfect control expresses itself through strategic silence. You speak when speaking serves your purpose. You remain quiet when quiet serves your interests. You never feel compelled to fill uncomfortable silences or justify your decisions to those who have no right to explanations. Your words carry weight. Because they are rare, considered, and purposeful, perfect control demonstrates itself through effortless boundaries. You do not need to defend your limits because they are so clearly established that others respect them automatically. You do not need to explain your standards because they are so consistently maintained that others understand them intuitively. You do not need to enforce your rules because they are so naturally embodied that others follow them voluntarily. Perfect control reveals itself through graceful strength. You are powerful without being aggressive. You are firm without being harsh. You are clear without being cruel. You are decisive without being impulsive. You are confident without being arrogant. You command without commanding. You lead without pushing. You influence without forcing. But let me ask you this. When you imagine the most controlled person you know, what qualities do they possess? How do they move through the world? How do they handle pressure? How do they interact with others? How do they respond to challenges? Study these qualities. Understand these patterns. Integrate these behaviors. The path to perfect control is not mysterious. It is methodical. It requires daily practice of the principles we have explored. It demands consistent application of the strategies we have discussed. It necessitates relentless commitment to the disciplines we have outlined. It calls for patient development of the skills we have identified. You must practice emotional regulation until it becomes automatic. You must develop strategic thinking until it becomes instinctive. You must cultivate composed responses until they become natural. You must build inner strength until it becomes unshakable. You must refine your presence until it becomes magnetic. This is not work that is ever finished. This is not a project that is ever completed. This is not a skill that is ever perfected. This is a way of living that becomes more refined, more elegant, more powerful with each day of practice. This is a commitment to becoming the kind of person who embodies control so completely that it appears effortless. The ultimate goal is not to control others. It is to become so controlled yourself that others naturally align with your energy, follow your lead, and respect your presence. The ultimate achievement is not to force compliance, it is to inspire it. The ultimate power is not to dominate. It is to be the kind of person around whom excellence and order naturally emerge. Perfect control is silent power. It needs no announcement because it is obvious. It requires no proof because it is evident. It demands no recognition because it is undeniable. When you have achieved it, you will know not because others tell you, but because the world around you begins to move with a different rhythm, a rhythm that you set not through force, but through the irresistible gravity of your composed, confident, controlled presence. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it.